Welcome to LTU Perspectives, a journey into the experiences, stories, and adventures at Lawrence Technological University, a student-hosted podcast filled with insights and the intriguing stories that embody the LTU spirit.
Hi everyone, I'm Cavan Burpee. I'm here with LTU Perspectives podcast, and I'm joined with my guest Nick Keuler today. How are you, Nick?
I'm good today. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. I just want to have you on here, ask you a few questions that I have. Since you're an international student here at LTU, just want to ask you a few basic questions, like what your choices were, your soccer journey here, and like what led you to the U.S. So I just want to first start off by asking you to share a bit about yourself and your soccer journey so far.
Okay, so as I said, I'm Nick Keuler. I'm from Germany, and I came to the US 1.5 years ago now, so that's my third semester in the US. I played medium-level soccer in Europe because I always wanted to focus on academics. Then I came here, kind of wanted to combine both academics and athletics. In my first year, I was in Oklahoma City, and then I transferred here to LTU this summer.
All right. Yeah, and so you mentioned you transferred here. So how was that transfer process look like?
So first of all, I made that choice to transfer out quite early, like last November, so my first semester. I liked it in Oklahoma. It was a really nice freshman year, but especially the academics were the main reason why I came here. So my agent kind of posted me on the portal, and then I think Dyer reached out, so my coach reached out to him, and then I had my calls with him. It was a bit of a rough process regarding all my credits and stuff, but I came up and in here, so it's all good.
So you mentioned you have an agent. Is that like sort of a recruiting process or something like that? So.
Exactly. For the recruiting for us internationals, it's really common to have an agent since there's so many players that want to come to the US. So those agencies kind of help you out with visa, with talking to coaches, especially since most Europeans are not that familiar with the process over here, the language. So the agents kind of help them.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So for me being from the US, for me, I know when I was trying to get recruited to play in college, because that was always my goal. I always wanted to play soccer in college. Yeah. For me, it was more you had like an app. So I used NCSA, which was like a recruiting app kind of. So I didn't really have like an agent or anyone that I worked with specifically. But I would always just like email out to coaches because you got to see like a list of head coaches for colleges around your area and stuff like that. So I would just reach out to them, and I ultimately had the decision of coming here to LTU. So glad to be here with you. Yeah. So another question I did have was, so you mentioned you transferred from Oklahoma City to being here at LTU. Was your big thing focused for academics, or was just playing soccer here as well, just like a bonus?
I mean, obviously, I made the choice to come to the US to combine both. McHugh in Oklahoma City is a top 10 program in the NAIA, but I didn't really like the coaches over there, and then academics weren't as great as here. So I kind of looked into my options, and since I want to focus on academics after I graduate and don't want to pursue it
for sure
professional career, I figured that it would be quite good for me to come to a tech school.
All right, for sure. Yeah. What? How would you say the competition was like from Europe to then coming overseas? Would you like rank that? Would you say Europe's more like competitive, or the US is more competitive? What would you say?
So let me say this: college soccer is completely different than what I used to play in Europe. Starting with the competition in the team, because obviously when you come here, there's 30 players. In our team, 25 of them are international. Everyone leaves their home country. They all want to play. Yeah. So there's a lot of complaining, a lot of whining in the team. Why I'm not playing? Why is he playing over me? I didn't really have that at home because it was more of a family. We all grew up together in my team. So I didn't transfer teams back home. I played in the same team for 15 years. So we were like a family, just trying to have fun. But here it's way more professional when it comes to competition. And in general, the whole practice sessions. So in pre-season, we practiced 3 times a week. Yeah. I never had that in Europe. So it comes close to a professional level, even though it's just an AIA.
You mentioned practice sessions. So what were those like back in Europe? Were they like every day, 3 times a week?
So like I played second division U19 academy. So it's high level, but it's not the highest level. It's not I'd say my old team, it would be a good contest against my LTU team now, but we would still beat them. So back home, I practice 3 to 4 times a week. Here it's different. We practice every day in the week. We have weight sessions 2 or 3 times a week. And then in preseason, obviously, we practice 2 most of the times, and then sometimes 3 times a day, which is crazy.
Yeah. So for me, I mean, growing up, I played soccer since I can remember, probably about like 4 years old. I remember for me, practices were probably 2 or 3 times a week. Never really had like every single day until I got into like high school. That's when it started to hit you, because everything was focused on that. For us in the U.S., we would split. You would do high school in the fall and then club soccer in the spring. So for me, when I got into my high school years, it was harder because I would then start playing high school, and then most of my friends and buddies that I played club with before high school started to split up, and they would only play in high school. So I didn't get to play with them as much as to where you said you were like, your whole team was a family. You get to play year-round, I'm guessing. So for me, I didn't really get that. But sort of the same with the practices. I mean, 3 times a week. How do you manage to stay connected with some of your roots back home?
Okay, so this is fairly easy, honestly. There is not a single day where I don't talk to one of my family members or my friends back home, especially with Snapchat and social media. You're just in touch all day, every day, basically. And then I call my mom 2 or 3 times a week. It's really nice, because especially when you have low points after losses or you have a bad game, you're never alone. You always have someone at home who's caring. And that really helped me in my first 3 semesters here.
For sure. And then another question I also had was, how did you adapt to the American style of play in soccer? That was one more I wanted to add on there.
So let me say this. The American college soccer is way more physical than is at home. It's way faster, obviously, because when you hit that adult level in Europe, you play I would be an 18-year-old and you play against 33, sometimes 28. So it gets slower and slower. Still, in Europe, they are more tactically educated than here. So here you come in, you have a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-olds, all athletes, like really fast. But most of them are not that tactical educated when it comes to the coaches. And I always told my friends back home, kind of makes sense, because as a coach, you have to deal with a group for a year or maybe 2 years, and then some transfer out, some graduate, so you get a bunch of new guys. It's really hard to make like that tactical standpoint you would make in Europe. Back home, you play in the same team for 5, 10, maybe 12 years. You don't transfer that often if you're not making that pro level. So when I came here, I had to adapt to that, especially hit the gym more often. That's a big difference. Like if everyone else is that physical, you need to catch up. You need to make sure that you can compete with that. So I was trying to hit the gym as often as I can.
Yeah, so you mentioned like the tactical versus physical aspect. So for me, I really started to recognize that in the sport going into high school. So for me, high school soccer was always just physical, boot the ball down the field and just run after it. Whereas like when I played club growing up my whole life, it was just like you had coaches that wanted to play fast, like play one pass, tiki-taka, kind of stuff like that, or coaches that wanted to play down the wing and just have their like fast wingers or fast strikers just run after the ball. So it's all for me just like different tactics and how I see the game. So I can see where you're coming from with that.
One thing to that, I think it's always tough for the coaches, especially American coaches too, because most American coaches start off with club soccer or high school soccer and then somehow find their way to college soccer. And then they have a bunch of internationals coming in who are used to have like high tactical standards for the past 15 years. So sometimes for us, it's interesting to see how the coaches might not catch up with what we are used to. So we need to adapt with that. And then the coaches, of course, it's hard for them to make sure to bring all the Americans and the internationals on the same page. Okay. That's what I noticed.
How do you balance the pressures of focusing on your academics while still being committed to practice every day, workouts every day, stuff like that?
Yeah. So coming from Germany, and Germany probably has top three educations worldwide. So my high school degree in Germany prepared me for college in a really good way. I came over here and I noticed really quickly the first rule is just be diligent. Just do your stuff, go to classes, don't be late, submit your assignments, and then you should be in a good shape to get your grades. It's sometimes, especially when you hit that October, November part of the season, when you have 2 or 3 games a week, practice every day, and still go to classes, your body's getting tired, and you just don't want to do that work anymore, but you just go through. Because, I mean, I always say after our season's done, we have 8 months to recover. So just push yourself through, and then
those 8 months just to recover.
Yeah.
Take the time you need, but always stay focused during that time.
Always be diligent. Show your professors that even though you're busy, you're willing to do the work, and then you should be good.
Yeah, for sure. And then one other question I had for you was, are there any particular challenges or unique challenges that you see as an international student versus any of the American students here?
So I say there's always a language barrier, and you'll notice that when you start to make friends, especially American friends or British friends, when you talk to professors, when you talk to American coaches, there's always that language barrier, so you're not able to express 100% of what you're trying to say. So that's kind of hard when it comes to school, when it comes to talking to the coaches. And I say when you have some assignments to do, or when you go to class and it's more complicated stuff, that language barrier is kind of challenging too.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I live with 3 international roommates, so I live with 2 from Spain and 1 from Slovakia, so for sure there's definitely a language barrier there for me as an American. Sometimes I'm not always understanding what the 2 Spanish kids are saying because they're always just talking one-on-one in Spanish, so that's something I wish I partook in high school, learning that language. So the language barrier there is definitely a bit of a...
But how does that make you feel when you're like in a room with 2 from Spain and they just speak a different language and you can't just understand?
Yeah, it's just like, no, why am I here? Like, like they're just talking. I don't understand what they're saying. Like, are they gonna do something to me? But so, in what ways do you think American soccer has helped you grow as a player and as a person?
It made me more independent. So obviously, leaving Europe, leaving my home, leaving everything behind that I built up for 18 years, and then just start off completely new. I had to get more independent, like don't rely on my parents anymore, don't rely on anyone. I have to find my own path. And that's the thing with soccer and also with academics, because you need to find your own way of handling things to overcome challenges. That made me grow as a person a lot, and I'll always be glad for that experience.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, for me, when I decided to go to college after high school, it was definitely a big step up, but I would definitely say it was not as big of a step as for you guys as internationals, because you're so far away from home. For me, home is an hour away, so I can always go home whenever I want to, but like, it was definitely a big step, but I don't think it was in the margin of how large your guys' was. But
that makes sense.
So I
especially
see for you guys.
So as an international, you always fear that something happens at home. It's like right now in Detroit, it's not that difficult to go back home because I have a direct flight to Frankfurt and I'm home in 10 hours. But it's always obviously way harder for me to go home than for you. So I just hope everything goes well at home until I go back for Christmas.
Last year I had a scare with my dad. He had a heart problem, so thankfully I was able to just drive home real quick. Like my mom wasn't there, my dad was the only one at the house at the time, so being able to do that was definitely
and that's another big lesson I learned. Like, you appreciate things more when you don't have them. So whenever I go home, even if it's just a month over the winter break or 3 months over summer, try to spend as much time with your family as you can, because it's never guaranteed to see them again. So I'm just trying to appreciate that moment even more.
In a perfect world, which team would you like to play for if you got the opportunity to professionally?
Professionally?
Yeah.
Internationally or just in the US?
Internationally, just
all over the world.
in general.
So I'm a huge Dortmund fan. Since I was 5 years old or so, went to the stadium often. I was actually at the Champions League final in London this year in June. So yeah, that would be my biggest dream, to play in front of the yellow wall, play in the stadium with 80,000 desperate fans. Would be absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, that would be great. If I had to pick a team, it'd definitely be Arsenal. I've been an Arsenal fan since I was like 6. The year I was born, they went invincible. Didn't lose a game all season. So for me, it's an easy choice. I've always been an Arsenal
would be a
fan.
good time right now too.
Yeah, I know they're excelling in everything right now. So it'd be an ideal time to join it if I got the opportunity. But
that's super far away.
Yeah.
You always got to stay realistic.
Yeah.
There's always some friends back home, they don't understand how you make it with D1, D2, D3, NAIA, so I always explain it.
How much work has to be put in. It's not just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to America and everyone, like, there's a cliche in Europe that Americans don't know how to play soccer.
Yeah.
So I always tell them there's a bunch of internationals and there's also loads of Americans that kind of adapt to
the internationals play once they come
level,
over.
So it's getting really competitive over here too. And there's a big gap between D1 and all the other leagues. So.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned you didn't really want to plan on pursuing an international career or pursuing a professional career in soccer after college. But if the opportunity did present itself after this year, would you be willing to take that, or would you want to finish up your academics here?
So I said this, my plan for the future was staying here for the next 2 seasons. I'm going to be a leader of this team. I hope I start and play as many games as possible. And then there will be opportunities for sure. It's probably not going to be for professional, but there's a semi-pro level that I see myself in 2 or 3 years. But I would always make the sport depending on my job. So I came here to focus on my academics, get my degree, and then hopefully get a good job. And if there's time to play soccer, I will do that in the city or the country I'm working in.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you mentioned semi-pro, so the opportunity last year to play semi-pro did present itself to me, but unfortunately I wasn't able to do it. I did get an internship during the summer, so it took up 40 hours of my week, so I didn't get the opportunity to. But I know on the team here, at least, there's a lot of guys that do play semi-pro in the summer, those internationals that stay over the summer, and those Americans that go back home, they do have the opportunity to play semi-pro. So if you ever wanted to, I can definitely show you some of the ropes to how to get in contact with some of those semi-pro coaches if you ever
really
felt
good
like
to know.
that.
Yeah. I'll come back to that for sure.
All right. Yeah, and then if you had to give advice to other young international players that were looking to possibly come overseas to pursue academics or athletics, what advice would you give them?
I would say don't be too hard on yourself. There are going to be challenges and you're going to find ways, but the more time you spend here, the easier it will get to find solutions. I would also say don't forget where you come from, but it doesn't really matter where you come from. When you make that big step, you're a completely new person. You can pursue different career paths than you wanted to initially. You can make everything possible. Everyone can make anything possible, but don't forget that when you're alone overseas, sometimes you tend to get depressed or whatever when something's not working out. Just continue working and you're going to find a way.
Yeah, just know that you got anyone to talk to. Some people are in the same boat as you, so you don't got to go through that stuff alone.
Yeah, that's another thing that helped me a lot, like having internationals around me that been through the same journey as me, so you can talk to them. I tend to talk to the older people, so juniors or seniors, been here for a couple of more years than me, so they know what to do, what might be the best option for me.
Yeah, and for me last year, the big thing was asking the upperclassmen like what they did in the scenario and stuff like that. So, yeah, just asking questions is always the big thing. You always want to get something out of the people that have gone through your situation.
And there are people that are willing to help. That's another It's another big thing I would recommend internationals coming over. It's different than in Europe. You got people here, even though there are language barriers, there are people here that are willing to help. It's internationals that study, it's the Americans that are here, the professors are always willing to help.
Yeah.
So just ask for advice if you need it.
All right, and then on a personal note, just to end it off, if you had to introduce your college teammates, or me specifically, to something from your home country, what would it be?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be German food. So I go back home over Christmas, and my grandma already asked me how many schnitzels I want to have for Christmas. I said, give me 7 or 8. That's something I would introduce you guys to. Maybe at some point you guys come visit me back home, and then my grandma's gonna be so.
I'd love that, yeah. Once again, thanks for listening to LTU Perspectives. My name is Cavan Burpee. My guest is Nick Keuler today, so thank you again.